I've reviewed dozens of motorcycles over the years and often talk about how different they all feel. However, I've never really stopped to think about the reasons why. Today, Honda aren't just taking me behind the scenes, they're putting me to the test by giving me the ultimate test rider experience. Can I actually feel the tiny engineering changes that make Honda feel, well, like a Honda? I guess we'll find out. Honda have brought me to Takasu Proving Ground in northern Japan, a facility that most riders will never get to see. Not only is it a test track, it's a place designed to recreate the real world. Different road surfaces, different corners, different conditions. All so Honda's engineers can understand exactly how a motorcycle behaves before it ever reaches its customers. Today I'm stepping in the shoes of one of those test riders. Throughout the day I'll be riding several motorcycles, including the CB1000 GT, CB1000 Hornet, CB1000F and the WN7. Except there's a twist. Despite looking almost identical, Honda's engineers have made tiny engineering changes between each one, and my job is to work out whether I can feel the impact of those changes simply by riding the bikes. And genuinely, I have no idea how difficult this is going to be.
Right, let me go in. Are you excited?
Always. Excited to publicly humiliate myself. Love it. Before we got into the real testing, Honda had one very important job for us: to whet our appetites and get our brains thinking like test riders. To do that, we started with a slow speed control exercise on the WN7, where the focus wasn't on speed at all, but precision, balance and consistency. Of course, we couldn't resist turning it into a bit of a competition. We joke that every time you put a foot down, it meant a shot of sake later in the evening. So there was definitely a bit of extra motivation to stay upright.
All the sake's for me.
Before I share my own conclusions from the day's testing,
So hard. So hard!
let's hear from Honda's engineers about what it really takes to develop a motorcycle. Okay, so today I am here with Hosokawa-san.
Yeah.
Paul, would you do me the good
Sure.
honours of introducing our interviewee?
Sure. So Hosokawa-san is General Manager for Bike Development for all our European models. He spent a lot of his early career being test rider for several bikes, several Fireblades.
Wow.
And now he's in the ultimate charge of the development of all those European focused models.
So we would say the big cheese, the big boss. When people say that feels like a Honda, what does that actually mean to you as like an engineer?
技術者として
はい
これはホンダだって言われた時にどういうことだと思ってますか？
やっぱりこう昨日乗って感じていただいた、と思うんですけど、まあいつでもどこでもどのモデルでも、操りやすくて、イージートゥライドという言葉はよく言いますけど、それによって、快適に走れたり楽しく走れたり速く走れたりすると考えてます。なので、そこがこうベースの考え方としてどのモデルとでも共通の、考え方です。
Okay. Our concept for every bike is that whenever you ride it, wherever you ride it, however you ride it, it is easy to ride. And by easy to ride, you get the good things of comfort, but you also get the good things of fun to ride, and you also get the ability to ride fast.
Yes.
So at the base of it all, that is our philosophy that underpins and is common to all our models.
Amazing, thank you. Right, today I have the incredible opportunity to interview Hayashi-san.
Hello.
Thank you so much.
Hello,
Hello. Would you please kindly introduce yourself to the audience?
Okay. Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Kanji Hayashi. I'm in charge for the handling the trackability test. Already I'm doing this test nearly 30 years. For us, it's really good opportunity to invite all of the journalists in Takasu, Hokkaido.
Thank you so much. So, in your opinion, what makes a great Honda test rider? What attributes, personality, skills, what do they need to do a really good job?
To be good test rider, of course, need certain riding skill and also the technical knowledge and also engineering education. But I believe personally, the motivation to create the good performance is one of key priority to be nice test rider.
Yes, so motivation and passion for the
exactly.
job. Amazing, great to know. Right, I have the amazing opportunity to interview Tanaka-san. Could you please introduce your job role?
はい、では自己紹介をお願いいたします。
はい、今回ホンダとして初めて開発して商品にした、電動のファンモーターサイクル、こちらの開発責任者を担当しました田中です。
Okay, my name is Tanaka. I'm responsible for the first Honda electric bikes overall development.
Amazing. Wow. Specifically regarding the WN7, what is something that riders never think about that Honda will have spent hundreds of hours testing on this bike?
特に今回この WN7 に、特化したい質問ですけれども、まさかこんなに時間かけて開発したと誰もわからないところでありますか？
こんなに時間をかけて開発した。そうですね。まあ比較的時間がかかったっていう面で言うと、やっぱりこのスタイリングのところはすごく時間がかかったんじゃないかなと思います。やっぱり一番最初にどんな形のオートバイを作ろうかねというコンセプトがあって、それに基づいた、まずはスケッチから始まりますけど、じゃあそれを具現化してで実際走らせてで、他のね開発メンバーがテストしてやっぱりいい部分もあれば悪い部分もあってで手直しをすればやっぱりデザインも崩れていってでまたバランスを取り直してこれをやっぱり最後の最後までもちろんこの色味だったり質感みたいなところもやっぱり工場で作るとまた再現できなかったりするのでやっぱりそういうところが一番時間かかってるかなと思います。
Yeah. Well, in fact, I think the style, the shape of the bike is one of the things that takes longer. Firstly, because we have a concept and we create a bike, but then we test the bike and, in reality, there are things that have to be modified. And so therefore, the style, the shape is continuously changing and being, the design must change. To be, the perfect bike, to be actually a bike. And also, for example, color, the feeling, all of it, you can only see it once it's created and done. So, in fact, the stylish, the shape, the design is probably what takes longer in the development of this bike.
特にその中でも部品っていうのであればやっぱり見せるデザインにしたバッテリーのこの色味とか質感とかっていうのをすごく最後まで調整するのに時間かかりましたし今回このモーターサイクルはこのピボットとかシートレールっていうのをアルミをむき出しにしたデザインにしていてこの表面の見え方とかフィニッシングみたいなところもかなり最後まで時間がかけたという言い方がいいですかね。
So yes, regarding this bike, because it is a bike with a battery, it was very important for us to also, create a really good-looking, stylish battery because it's not hidden; it's for everyone to see. It's lovely, and also the pivots, the aluminium part, to make it all raw and beautiful. And so all of this is part of the concept that took time to create.
Okay, amazing, thank you. Right, so what are my conclusions after riding the 4 different machines? We had a mass-produced one, we had bike A and we had bike B. Mass-produced is exactly that, what a customer will receive if they buy one. And then we have the rare opportunity to ride something that Honda deem not quite perfect, which is quite interesting that they actually allow us to ride a bike with a sort of imperfection or something that they don't deem as quite right. So, the A bike will have something completely different that will impact the bike in a bad way, and then B will have something completely different to A again, that will negatively impact the ride of the bike, or supposedly. So could I actually feel the differences? I'm going to be honest with you guys in my observations. So the first bike that I rode was the CB1000 GT, and the mass production bike rode exactly how I anticipated it to ride. I've ridden that bike before, I understand it, I get what it's about, and it was nothing different for me to jump on that bike and ride it compared to when I've ridden it in the past. Jumping onto A, there was some tweaks with the airflow on the dash. So if you look on the screen now, you'll see that there's a red piece of plastic that's not normally there, and that was blocking the airflow from, you know, kind of evenly distributing the front of the bike, and in effect putting pressure on the front of the bike because the air can't go through it. It's almost like a big blocker. So in theory, the bike should have felt lighter, it should have felt a bit sportier and kind of a bit twitchier because the air pressure is kind of forcing the bike up on the front end. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't actually feel much of a difference with that bike, which is why I'm not a Honda test rider. However, I did notice some increased turbulence with that. That was my takeaway from bike letter A. And with bike letter B, there were some different changes. So at the side of the bike, there are almost like vents where the air can rush through, and it means that the air can flow around the bike in a certain way. With bike B, they were blocked up. And what I felt with that was, with micro inputs, like just pushing and pulling on the bars, it would be really, really kind of unstable and very like janky feeling. However, I was questioning whether that was what I was supposed to feel, because actually when I was riding it on the big sweeping bends of the winding course, I actually found it like a bit heavier to steer and kind of pull into the bends. So when I got back, I questioned the engineers and said, I don't know, I've got conflicting views when I do this. It's really like unstable and a bit light, but when I'm on the sweeper bends, it feels heavier to push and pull. And they basically confirmed that that is an effect that you would feel with those adjustments. So yeah, that's a point for Kate. Not with bike A, but with bike B. I think I nailed it, so that's good. The next bike we rode, the WN7, the electric bike. Haven't ridden this bike before, so we went on the mass-produced one, and it just felt like electric bikes that I've ridden in the past, in terms of, you know, there's no noise, they're very kind of nippy, they just go when you wind the throttle on. And yeah, with bike A, how they changed that was where the battery is held kind of connected to the bike, they reduced the thickness of the plate by 1 mil. And it's very crazy because when I went out there, I was supposed to feel that the bike was a bit floppier, a bit lighter, kind of less feel, you know, to the ground in front. And I did genuinely feel that with the bike. So I felt kind of good that what I felt was what I was supposed to feel. So that was great. Then I jumped on bike B, and that had changes with the sport mode and the econ mode. And that was very, very obvious that it was operating outside normal parameters of acceleration and deceleration. The sport mode was so aggressive. It was just so jerky on the throttle. Like, you would wind it on, it would hit you like a freight train. You would shut off, boom, like real aggressive deceleration. And obviously they don't want that with a customer. They don't want to feel that, you know, aggressiveness, and it's just not ideal. Then I tried the recon mode, and that you really have to wind it on because it's giving you nothing. It's giving nothing when you're trying to keep up, keeping it pinned. But then when you shut off, it was still strong, the deceleration, but it was a lot smoother. So I came back and asked if that is what I was supposed to feel, and it was. So another tick for me with that brief, which is good. So the next bike that I rode was the CB1000F, and with this bike, as well as the next bike, which is the Hornet, we were actually supposed to ride these on a different track, a European suburban track it's called, and that kind of simulates German towns and British roads, and was to give us an idea of how these bikes operate in a kind of urban setting, an urban scene. However, because the weather at that part of the track, we just did the full winding course, which is there taking inspiration from the Nürburgring. So as you can imagine, it was pretty spicy on these bikes. But there's a reason I'm telling you that, because it impacted the results. So with the mass production CB1000F, never ridden that bike before, not many people have in the UK, so that was quite unique to ride that and a big honour. And I rode that mass production one and it's just lovely. It feels proper strong on the acceleration, but it does have plusher, comfier suspension for a discerning gentleman or gentle lady, I would say, you know, because it's not designed like a Hornet to be absolutely thrashed. So that's what was interesting about putting it on the winding road, because the modification on bike A was actually the linkage. We had a Hornet's linkage and a Hornet spring. So the characteristics then became more sporty on the bike. The suspension was firmer, you could trust it more when you whacked on the acceleration for it to feel more poised and just handle it better. And interestingly enough, sorry Honda, I actually preferred that suspension feeling on the winding track. However, if we were to do the original plan and ride this in a suburban setting or an urban setting, which we were supposed to, then the feedback probably would have been that the bike was, you know, maybe a bit too firm for the suspension for that kind of model. So it's really funny because we took it in a different environment that we weren't supposed to. I actually ended up really liking it. But yeah, if it was on the suburban track, it probably would have felt a bit too stiff for what they were trying to achieve with that bike. So that was some changes that I could definitely feel. It's quite bumpy on the windy road, very bumpy, and it just felt more composed, which I personally liked. Then with bike B, there were some changes in the air funnel, like the intake. So on the actual CB1000F, you've got two that are 40mm and you've got two that are 50mm, so they're different sizes to give you a different sound. Honda call it like the beating heart, the beating pulse of the bike, which is how it is differentiated from the Hornet. So on this bike, we rode it with the Hornet's intakes, which are all the same. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, the difference to me was so marginal. I could tell a little bit, but only because I'd told that's what I was looking out for. If you'd have just blindly put me on that bike, I don't think I have the experience or the ear, the keen ear, to have heard that difference. So that's a big X for me with that bike, because I couldn't say, oh yes, that is exactly what's changed with that bike. I just didn't feel it. Then we got to the Hornet. Oh my gosh. This was the best bit of the day. The weather had dried up from being absolutely biblical, and at first we got to ride the Honda Hornet SP. Now I'm a little disappointed. I would have liked to have ridden just the generic Hornet, because the bike A and B were both Hornets, not SPs, but we've got to ride what we have, and I'm also not going to be disappointed at riding an SP around that course, because oh, it was spicy. Anyway, took it round, the mass-produced one, felt like a Hornet. You know, steering inputs are so fragile, you can literally just weight a peg and you're in the next continent. It's absolutely crazy. I love it. It's leery, it's spicy, it keeps you on your toes. Oh, brilliant. Mass-produced one, great. However, then we moved on to bike A, which was a normal Hornet, and with the rear tail rail, what they did was there are holes drilled in to make the bike have less flex, so it's less stiff. Sorry, more flex, less stiff. And basically they have welded, I think, 2 of the 5 holes to increase stiffness on the rear. Oh my gosh. Now, if we'd have ridden this in the place where we were supposed to on the European track, it would have been more like town roads, and the outcome would have probably been, oh my gosh, this bike is far too, you know, firm and stiff for this kind of riding. But because we got to take it on the windy road, the minute we just set off there like scalded weasels, oh my gosh, it was like the bike's evil twin. That's how I describe it. It was unreal. It was point and shoot. It just held everything so firm. Oh man, like literally I loved it. And honestly, if I had a Hornet for the track, I might get in the garage with the welder out, because it made it incredible for super sporty, super fast riding. However, I feel like if you want a track bike, you're going to get a Fireblade, aren't you, if you're looking at the Honda range. Probably not going to take a Hornet on track, unless it's the occasional track day, in which a normal Hornet is fine to handle that. But the difference is in how firm it felt, how focused it felt. It was very recordable, like I could feel it, and I felt good. I'm like, oh yes, I can actually feel a change that I didn't think I would feel at all. So that was brilliant. Then, conversely to that experience, I rode bike B, which with that bike, you wouldn't think it would make such a difference, but it was a couple of bolts, like slightly heavier and a different shape. And honestly, those bolts turned it into a completely different bike. I did not enjoy my experience on it. The Hornet felt uncharacteristically lethargic. I had to battle it to turn. Like it was fighting me. It was just so slow to turn compared to the other two bikes that I'd ridden. The guys in front of me were just going, and on the other bikes I could keep up, you know, more than happily with them. But I was struggling on that, and I was like, oh, I'm not vibing with it. I'm not feeling it whatsoever. I didn't like it. To me, it wasn't the Hornet's characteristics. It's agile. It's, you know, super point and shoot. And honestly, it was like sleepy. It was like lazy, and I really didn't like it. So it's crazy to me that those differences had such an impact, given that it's a few bolts. Like, what is going on? Mental.
In Japan, there's a saying, Chiri mo tsumoreba yama to naru. Even dust, when piled together, becomes a mountain. And that philosophy feels perfectly reflected in Honda's approach to motorcycle development. Throughout the day, we experienced how adjustments that seem almost insignificant on paper could completely change the way a motorcycle felt from the saddle. A few millimetres here, a subtle change there, each decision adding another small piece to the finished bike. Individually, they may seem tiny, but when you begin to understand how they all work together, you realise just how much thought goes into creating the character of a motorcycle. So after a full day of riding, testing and learning from the people behind the bikes, here's what I'm taking away from the experience.
When I arrived here this morning, I thought motorcycles felt different because of things like brake horsepower, suspension, brakes, electronics, and of course they have their part to play. But after spending a day here at Takasu, I've realised it's only part of the story. What really surprised me is how many tiny engineering decisions go in to making a bike feel a certain way. I've reviewed dozens of motorcycles over the years, but today, after this experience, I feel like I finally know what it takes to feel them. And on that note, I love you guys and leave you. So that was my takeaway from bike number A. Bike number B, did I say number A? What an idiot. What did I actually think about that one sec? Less stable when pushing and pulling on the back. Ah, okay, cool, right. Okay. I've reviewed dozens of motorcycles over the years, but after this experience today, I now actually think that I really feel them. That sounds weird, like, am I feeling them? Am I feeling them? And on that last note, I love you and leave you. Okay, cool.
Can you do one more because it's said over the ear, not over the ears?
Oh, did I? Oh, thank you for picking that up.